Thank you so much, Rachana, for being here with me, the Golden Core podcast. I would love for you to start by sharing a little bit about yourself, perhaps exploring a bit about your personal journey and the work that you do, and to go on to talk about the International College of Spiritual Midwifery as well, for those who don't know about that work. Thank you.
Yes, sure, Marina. Well, I've been fortunate to have a remarkable life, and the last, since I was in my 30s, really took a direction that determined a path that I would never have anticipated, but continued to delight and inspire me. So it was during that time, it was after the birth of my first baby, that was a great catalyst for me. Unfortunately, like many women in our culture, I had a terrible experience, a lot of obstetrical interference and what have you. So, and was left quite shattered afterwards. It was absolutely the opposite to what I was wanting for my baby and for myself. So I was very involved with a group of women at the organisation called the Childbirth Education Association, and it was a consumer group. And we'd come together, and the idea of this group was they were really looking at the childbirth experience. And this is over 50 years ago now, right? So we're going stretching back. Maybe a lot of you weren't even born by then. I was doing that then. It was mandatory for, women were put into a hospital virtually, and then they had their pubic area all shaved, and they were given enemas, and they were drugged, and their babies were dragged out of them, and it was absolutely horrific. And we wanted to know why. That didn't seem right. So the idea of this organisation, the CEO, was to teach to whole classes that taught a process called psychoprophylaxis. And that taught you to use your mind and your breath and to tune into your body in ways that you didn't need outside medication for a perfectly normal, natural, physiological event. So we had our motto at the time was push for pleasure. So, and this is what was happening when we're having babies and just giving accounts of how it was for them afterwards that we hadn't heard before. And as it grew, there were 12 of us, so we formed a committee, a very powerful committee when I look back. And it was a time, before this time, there were no birth centres. It was all very, very strictly controlled by the obstetricians, really, and the medical profession. And even though that still occurs today, there are more choices today. Not as many choices as I had envisioned and expected to be available for every woman, but there are, if you want them, there are more choices today. Anyway, after my terrible experience there, 4 years later, I had my second child at home, and I still get very touched. All the side it's amazing. It's such a fundamental right, for every woman to have that experience. It's a fundamental right that was ignited in me, that everyone should be able to have this opportunity if they want it. And that's driven me. It still lives in me. It brings a fierceness, it brings a resolve, it brings, it's a similar sort of feeling you get when you're a grandparent. Feeling towards a grandchild is different to feelings towards children. It's quite extraordinary. But there's a commitment, it's quite amazing. So it makes it easy to do the commitment. You can't not do it. So off I went on my journey. And I was fortunate enough, very, very fortunate within this group that I was working with. We had contact and involvement of a wonderful doctor called Dr. Graham Farage. He was a primal therapist. So primal therapy is a process in which you use your emotions, and you allow the emotions to dominate and to take your body, your physiology, and your mind where it wants to go. It's extraordinary.
Wow.
And I was having experiences that I didn't know were possible, and the changes that occurred, and I couldn't go back. I just wanted more and more and more. So as much as I could. And that just led to inner openings and the arising of capacities that I didn't know. It was like it opened up my psyche, and things started happening, and everyone just kept working. So I just kept doing it. And it's been quite a spirit-led And you can feel that your spirit's leading you and showing you and making opportunities available. So before very long, after I'd had my daughter about 5 years later, I was again with I fell in love with my husband, who he was a philosopher, a beautiful man who was a philosopher, and he also was studying yoga. So with the sort of Western philosophy and his interest in Eastern work came together with my work in childbirth, because I became more and more involved in natural childbirth, and attending births and supporting people at births, the early days of home births in Australia. And we were all going to each other's births and telling stories and learning things that like nobody knew about this stuff. How come we didn't know about this stuff? Our bodies gave us such opportunities in it needed a certain environment, and then things just happen. So I ended up on a piece of land up in the Yarra Valley, 40 acres of land surrounded by the King Lake National Park, land that's been badly logged, a lot of it, and the rest was just bush. And there on that land, we established the Centre for Human Transformation. And so for the next 30 years, we were up there. We started up living, we went right back to the earth. We were off the grid, did all those sorts of things, brick buildings, lived in a caravan for 10 years. People came and just people talked, and we had people from all around the world coming. We created courses and we had residential facilities, and a community gathered. So we had other people, some of them in caravans, and so we had other buildings. And it was an amazing adventure, running courses, coming, people going. It was truly, truly blessed. So the women's work continued, and we developed at the Centre for Human Transformation, we developed two quite strong streams of men's work and women's work. And we also taught Tantra. We had groups rebirthing groups, and deep trance work where men and women came together. So we had the good mix of it. But the women's work particularly grew, and we just found we held 5-day circles. So we lived together for 5 days and explore using, different processes to explore ourselves, based very much on the primal model. The primal model really has, yes, it has been very strong influence for me. And then, of course, understanding the breath, it comes into breath work. And we worked with world leaders, Bangroff, all the breath work trainings that were around. We were also running those, and people trained with us. So we trained people in breath work, body work, beautiful body work, body transformation, deep body work. And people came to prepare for the birth of their babies. They came to prepare for their weddings. All those life transitions, we were able to provide space, and people seemed to benefit greatly from them.
The rites of passage.
All of them, absolutely. People had extraordinary initiations. Wow. When you enter into that world of your inner world, it's all there. Everything is within us. And it's the wonder of it. It's the simplicity of it. All the stuff that we get caught up in out there is such a waste of precious time.
Of life.
Of what we really are. And people just discover what you really are and what's possible, and what happiness gives you happiness, and where contentment actually comes from inside yourself, and then other things outside change. So that becomes apparent. So we just kept creating processes that enable that to happen. We fell in love over 40 years ago now, with Osho, and the Sannyasin experience was wonderful, so enriching, so joyous, so enlightening. Just the whole community of the event, being part of that was part of our lives too. So the International College of Spiritual Midwifery, I was teaching it was a 5-day women's mysteries process that was the foundation of the women's work. And I did that for 27 years. So for 27 years around Australia, a lot in New Zealand, we had this beautiful program working. Of course, people would return to do it after they'd done one. Many people returned. And so I got to a point where we had people who'd done many retreats and people who were starting. So, of course, they had different expectations or possibilities, if you like. And so out of that, and we had this knowledge that we'd accumulated out of all the experiences of women and women's bodies, and particularly around childbirth, particularly about healing birth. The capacity of the body to heal, amazing. So resilient, and it's so generous. And the spirit is so generous when you just hold the space. And people have wonderful, wonderful experiences, and babies too. So usually in our circles for women's mysteries, we'd have babies in arms as well. So that was a rich experience of having a group of women. There'd be usually about 20 women. We had a limit of 5, because that's 5 babies with their mums, and they were still in arms. They had to still be in arms. And that was a wonderful experience. That they were absolutely fantastic. You know, it's rare for women who haven't had children to spend that amount of time with a little one. That in itself, the babies did a great job in sharing themselves, as they certainly did. It was lovely, just really lovely. So with this 2 groups of women, we needed to have somewhere to hold, because in New Zealand, particularly, the College of Midwives became involved with women's mysteries over there, and the students would come and do part of the program as part of their training. So we needed something to hold this information. So the International College of Spiritual Midwifery was born, and it then generated its own program. So we had one-day programs, we had Women, Power and Birth, which were monthly forums, public forums. We held conferences, brought overseas speakers over. We were very active. It was had a wonderful group of on the committee and the foundation members of the college, and some of them they still meet. And that was so I formed a group, a closed group, and they still meet. We are now 30 years. Those women have been meeting, and they meet twice a year, 4 days each time in retreat. So it's very beautiful, as you may imagine. Their inner work is kept growing and expanding all the time. And there's a second circle too, been going for 15 years. So they're the core. It's the core of the college now, because in 2009 the fires came through our beautiful centre that we built up in the hills, and we were burnt out.
Wow.
So things changed dramatically then, and it was our facilities. We had the teaching facilities, everything up there. Things changed. So they changed. So the core group of the college are the 2. They meet ongoing, and the program that we're providing at the moment is called Restoring the Ebb. So that's come out of these 2 groups, out of their deep meditation. A lot of the work that we do has its roots and its genesis right back in the healing temples of Egypt. Just that understanding of the life force and how humans can be. That's sort of flavours everything and finds its way through our consciousness to appear in so restoring the ebb is, very, very beautiful. It's a combination of very ancient ritual and the use of sound, the use of fragrance. We use frankincense. So in restoring to the ebb, what we actually do is create a temple space. So our work is temple work, and that's what we create, temple. We provide an environment that enables the body. We have it's like philosophy of 5 bodies, an understanding of the human condition, because over time humans have always wanted to talk to each other about themselves. It's the only story we've got. We create a space where we take the 5 bodies, which is the physical body, and then there's the mental body, which do your belief systems. And like the physical body that has many systems, very gross bones and your muscles, and right through all the different systems that work magnificently to let us have this experience. The mind too, the mental body has its different chambers, if you like, different levels. And then we have the emotional body, which is you can identify the emotions and the role that they play. And then we put a lot of emphasis on the energetic bodies. And that's really understanding and experiencing the energies that are in us, that generally in Western culture are only just being discovered, as Westerners think they do. That things don't exist until it's a young culture. So it's the energetic body. And we hear you talk about the chakras and the systems of the body that are well documented in Eastern philosophies. If anyone's had acupuncture or shiatsu, which are very popular, of course, now they're everywhere, which is nice. Then there's these other currents, and they're so powerful. And it's as the energies get finer, they get more powerful, and they actually have more influence. So they influence all the way through. And then there's our spirit selves too. So with those 5 bodies, and no matter what's happening, there's that aspect of each of the bodies that's contributing. Sometimes one dominates more than the other, but they're all equal, and they're all equally important, and they all need equal respect and care and space for expression. And then spirit can come in and be present on earth when the physical, the mental, the emotional, and this energetic body are cared for, and people become more inspired to spirit in action, inspiration from our first breath. So a lot of the work that we've done is, and the exploration and the understanding goes from conception right down to that cellular level, right down with the cells, that in each cell holds so much, just understanding that, and that we are trillions of cells, and the importance of environment on cells, how cells respond, and how to provide the best environment to get the most favorable. So a lot of the work, again, is primal based, with primal therapy. You see, that's over 50 years ago. We were experiencing cellular memory, talking about it, and understanding the importance of it.
That makes me think of something I read. I was reading up on Ib. So my understanding comes from ancient Egypt, the Egyptian culture. And something I read was just so beautiful, that the Ib was believed to be formed from a drop of the mother's heart at conception. So beautiful.
Yes. So you respond immediately, don't you? You feel something. And that's so much all poetry and all religions are speaking in metaphor. And once it's understood that it's metaphoric, then you come back to the essence. It's talking about essence, which is hard to talk about, to convey in words. It's beyond mind, right? So it's not mental. So it's other, but it's what is. That's the paradox, right? That's the thing about. And so we use whichever culture you're in, they use what's relevant and meaningful to them. But that won't have the same meaning to another culture. And that's where the problem occurs for people, when they take things literally and try to make them literal and impose them on other people. And it's also unnecessary.
Exactly. We're always complicating things. Just need to remind ourselves to come back to the felt sense, not the making sense of things, just the felt sense of it all.
Just being, we say isness is the business. We're in the business of isness.
Incredible journey. Thank you so much for sharing. I could just be in your presence and just listen to you sharing those stories for days. I feel like I should come to one of those 5 days events.
It's storytelling, isn't it? And the power of story and listening to other people's stories, so beautiful. It's just so nourishing. So I suppose I'm going to talk a bit more about Ib, because that's what I want the people who are listening to this to know about.
Yes, please. I'd love to hear more.
I'll tell you a bit more about Ib. So we use the frankincense, and frankincense is known for its medicinal purposes, and it enhances the brain and really nourishes us deeply, this frankincense. And we use sound. I'm a great fan of Nikola Tesla and his work, beautiful work, and the understanding. And it is the understanding. Everything is frequency. So it's the frequency that we feel, right? It's the frequency inside you. That's why people are moved with music and things like that. So everything is frequency. There's nothing that's not frequency. There we go. So we use all day, people are immersed in frankincense being breathed in and the sounds are playing. So the cells of the body are being really given optimum environment to be in. And then we have the processes of inner exploration and to work with people, work individually with what they have. And the restoring of the ib being the heart, as you said. And it is the heart-mind connection that is so important. As we develop our bodies in our mothers, the heart develops first. And then cells migrate from the heart up into the cranium, which is going to become the brain. So the brain is made of heart cells. Okay, and it's this resonance. They resonate. They're supposed to resonate. And then you get a brain that's understood. It knows that it's a tool inspired and in service to the heart. And the heart nourishes and feeds to the brain. That is our divine design. That's how we are. Unfortunately, humans have just created ritual and processes that interrupt and damage that. And it is during fetal life when this happens. It's during our fetal life that we are most vulnerable. That's why nature puts us supposedly safely in a woman's sacred inner space, surrounded by water and protected by her and respected by others. We grow the next generation. What greater thing to do than to bring through the next generation? And why not make them the best that can be? But we've done the opposite, so that the fact that we are having increased mental health problems in young people. We have babies born stressed. Now, really ridiculous, but it is happening. We are mammals, and that's a beautiful thing, our mammalian nature, but we try to act as though we're not. And as mammals, we have basic mammalian needs. And our neocortex evolved from our mammalian. So unless the mammalian is well nourished and sound, the development of the neocortex has to be compromised. It must be. And it's like anything, if the foundations aren't right, you've got problems along the way. And that's what's happening. The ongoing increase of intrusion into the womb life. Once babies were safe and left there till they were born, the ongoing intrusion concerns me. And for women, and our bodies are designed, we have this evolutionary design. And it's, again, that deep satisfaction when things are right and in order. And it's very specific. The order is quite specific. Nature has no small change. And it's quite profound. And even small steps, when they're disrupted, have an effect. They have an impact. So paying attention to that, and being respectful of it, and allowing it to happen, really challenge that thought of the belief that you have to do things when nothing needs to be. You can look at our other mammals on the planet, and they do quite well growing the next gen, although we interfere there too in many cases. But of course, there are species where we don't. To look to those and just see how much grace is in it, how much grace and how it just occurs, and what we're missing out on. That we've taken this process and made it complicated and put vested interests from outside into it. And it's very sad that we suffer where we don't need to. So those very early times, those basic mammalian needs, I really do think that meeting those are so important for each of us as we're born. And as women, it's important for our body that we fulfill our mammalian design, that our well-being is in that. My breasts were creating the magnificent breast milk, with science behind breast milk is being revealed more and more. 7 years production of breast milk is not a bad effort. Wow. They're only small, but they did a great job. And it gives a sense of, there's a satisfaction and there's good health in that. It's a whole expression of the feminine, of the power, of the magnificence of the human, what we actually are. And I think that we are so wonderful to be able to just experience what we are, that people are doing that, people are feeling lack of. And it's so those, basic mammalian needs, just if a person has that, fulfilled for the first 1,000 years of their life, which is virtually the first 3 years. The foundations are there. Deep neural pathways have been established. There's an education just so life-enhancing, a self-assurance that is awesome when you meet it in people who've had that. It's unshakable, and they just are not swayed by things that get most people. There's a lack of fear, and that fear is FEAR, false evidence appearing real. And it's imposed from outside. People believe it's only, again, you've got your belief systems. One of the bodies takes that on as real and then acts as though it's real. But these kids, they're just whoa. And they're so heartful and so insightful. And so in situations we'll interpret things with a depth and a breadth that's amazing. Yeah. So seeing that and just providing opportunities for people to discover that in themselves and encouraging them and supporting them to provide for their babies out of the International College of Spiritual Midwifery and the Centre for Human Transformation. There's a beautiful community out there that knows each other well. When they attend each other's births, they know each other as well. But sitting in a circle and doing processes like that, it's just an intimacy that's beautifully nourishing. It's very enriching. So in restoring to the ib, we use the fragrance, we use the sounds, we use ancient ritual. What we do to do this beautiful process called wrapping. We have these particular cloths, they're called rebozos. They're made by hand by women in South America, bring them in. So it's like being wrapped up like a mummy. Have you had the experience?
I have received, after the birth of my second child, I had the closing of the bone ceremony, and then I went on to do the training myself with now Lee Vinave when she visited Melbourne. It was incredible to go through that process of receiving it and then feeling the call to learn about the entire ceremony and offer that to close friends and other women.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's beautiful. So that's also happened with restoring with the ib, where people are finally they're wrapped, and we have our wrappers. They're women who are trained, the holy wrappers. So we've got the training for the wrappers as well as the public restoring the ib. So this heart-brain connection gets disrupted, and we started restoring the ib sort of as an offering for people after that had an expansion of some sort. So childbirth, of course, is one. Comes and closing the bones is an expression of this process. So we widen it to that too. It's not unusual for people to bring a birth story and to be at that part of their life. When people have been through something and they're entering a new part of their life. So it's really working all the day to realign that heart-brain connection, so that they can move on into the next phase of their life. So that's what the process does. So sometimes it might be people who are just divorced, maybe, or maybe it might be somebody who's just starting a new career or
big transitions in life.
Time of transition.
Yeah.
Particularly. But people find in their lives they're always on an edge of some sort, So the more aware people become of that, becoming menopausal, that's a big transition.
Incredible. And you have the next event is this coming Sunday.
Yes.
But you will be holding another one in October as well?
October, yes, that would be wonderful. We hold it out in East Melbourne, a beautiful venue there in East Melbourne, and we'll make sure I've got the right information here.
And I can share the details in the show notes as well with the link to the events.
That would be wonderful.
Absolutely. I'm happy to include that.
That would be lovely. And what we thought we'd like to offer for people who listen to this podcast is a 10% discount for the October program. Beautiful. So people, those of you who move to ring Sundare, who does our bookings, and she'll take care of them and they can enjoy it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this offer. Incredible. Thank you so much for your presence and for sharing the incredible work that you do and the incredible life journey you've had. Oh, it's been such an honor to hold this space and share
Thank you, Marie.
this question. And it is, I'd love for you to share a little bit about the little Rachana. I would love to, for a moment, just hold space for the little person you were as a little child, as a little kid. If there's a story or an aspect of the little one inside of you that you'd like to share in this moment, anything that perhaps brought you joy, that made your heart sing, or anything at all, I'd love to hold space for her.
Oh, she was, yes, I wish we could bring her in. I suppose you could say she was an earnest little thing. I had the opportunity. I was brought up in an environment that really nourished and nurtured my inner life. And what I've come to see over time is things that I was taught I enjoyed then in a religious sort of sense. Actually, once I realized that the metaphor of them, saw how deeply and saw how I had become, was the seeds were sown then, and I was nourished. The sort of the deeper mystical part of life was catered for, and yeah. So she liked all those. She had lots of brothers and sisters, and they took up a lot of her life too. She had 4 brothers and 3 sisters, so there was lots of action all the time. And I had a mother who was just beautiful and who loved her children and really showed me how to look after children and how to hold a family, and a father who worked hard and supported it. So I grew up with as my guide, as my reality. That was my reality. And yeah, a house full of people who do care for each other. So I can see that I draw on that. And as my mother kept having children, I had quite an experience of pregnancy and young babies. So I became a surrogate mother very early. I think I was a godmother at 11. It was my first experience of being a godmother. So it was very much a lot of that. And my child explanation of where babies came from. I knew they came from the hospital because my mother went to hospital, right? So they came from the hospital. So, okay, I knew that. But I lived with this woman who'd get a big fat belly and come back with a baby in her arms. There was a link I didn't have in my chain. So my child mind took me, and I had this image, which I think you sort of heard about and saw baby cards. I really believe that the babies came from God. God sent the children. They were a gift from God. That was always a given. And that how they got here was that the storks came with the babies, if you've seen those images. And the hospital that we were all born at, it's called the Mercy Hospital, not where it is now, but where it was in East Melbourne. Very close to where I'm doing this program, actually, strangely enough. So I thought that would be a great thing to be one of those nuns dressed in white. We went up and got the babies, right? So that's what and later on, of course, I teach spiritual midwifery, which is, I see how the foundation was laid. So funny. Isn't that amazing what children, how you tell yourselves and establish things in the
Beautiful.
Yes, that's right. That was so. There were lots of babies. I had lots of aunts having lots of babies. I think I was the first of my family born after the war. My grandmother had 3 children, and then I was the first of her 28 grandchildren. So there were lots of babies.
Yes.
So I guess I learned things from all of them. Each of them had a lot to do with them. When I was doing my teacher training, which was my first profession, and you'd have to do these, part of it was doing these demonstration lessons where someone would critique you. And I'd be saying to Mum, oh, I've got to do so-and-so, you know what they like. And all I had to do was, of course, relate to that one who was around the back. And it gave me a head start. I love that. I mean, my life before I had my children, I just adored my teaching career. And I took the teaching, especially what I'm still doing. I still teach.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
You are so welcome, darling. So welcome.
It's been lovely. Yeah.
Blessings on your work. So you're in, no, you're not in Hurstbridge, you're in Rachana.
Montmorency. So not
Montmorency,
far
yes. My
from
daughter's out that way. Yeah. I'll
yeah.
be out that way this afternoon.
Lovely. So I'm a physiotherapist by background. I work in a large public hospital in neurosciences, but I'm Brazilian. I was born in Brazil and moved to Australia in 2010. Being Brazilian, I was raised Catholic, but Brazilian Catholicism is very open to, at least in my upbringing, we're very lenient and open to learning about other religions. There's this weaving of African influences, and yes, we say that our religion is universal. It's, very accepting of other
That's so good. Oh,
beliefs. So, if you saw my little altar when I was a little child, it would have like a little Buddha, a saint, some angels, and a mandala. And it was just how we grew up, just open-hearted to this life force and everything that is, beneath and beyond. So it was quite beautiful when I brought that along with me to Australia. And then was when I arrived, I was really focused on my clinical career and felt like I put my spirituality to the side a little bit. And I was, in my academic sort of mind for a long time. And when I didn't know I was pregnant with my first child yet, but I did my first Reiki training. And I was literally the week of the training was the first week. So I had just, conceived, and that's when I did the training. So my first child was, what I guess reminded me of that aspect of myself and just brought me back to my essence and to my heart. And from there, it was all, go. And I started to initially do all of those trainings for myself. And then when I had just before I had my second child, I had a couple of pregnancy losses. And I went on a journey to try to understand and look at, the lessons behind that, and saw it as, in a way, an opportunity to bring a lot of healing to my maternal lineage. So I took, my mother was one of 10, my father one of 6. So I come from very large families, and my grandmother had quite a few pregnancy losses and a lot of trauma as well in her journey. And I felt like that was then carried on, into the lineage through my mother and then myself. And my mother herself had a traumatic birth. And I felt like there was a lot of healing in terms of intergenerational and in terms of my lineage that I had to do that work for us all. So I went on a journey there. And in that same year, so I had the 2 pregnancy losses, and then conceived my child. He just turned 3, so he's had his 1,000 days. And with his conception and his birth, so my first child, I had he was a surprise breech. So I had him at the Mercy, and they don't do breech births. We didn't know that he was breech, and I progressed to just before, the pushing stage, and it was just not progressing for a long time. And they asked me, up until that point, I had no interventions, and they said, would it be okay if we do an examination? And when they did the vaginal examination, they saw that he was breech. And in that moment, they said, we will have to either transfer you to another hospital because we can't deliver breech babies with the staffing we have at the moment, or you can have an emergency cesarean. And at that point, many hours later, I was in a lot of pain and completely out of my body at that point with everything that was going on, ultrasounds happening and all of those things. So I had an emergency cesarean, and then moving back to the birth of my second child, I had a vaginal birth with no interventions, a few at the end, but it was a beautiful birth. And I had a lot of, it felt very powerful, and I had a lot of, my voice was heard, and I was able to make decisions for myself and my child in that moment. So it was very healing too. I had that experience with my little one, and with that came this deep desire to start sharing the wisdom that I had gathered over, my life journey and that I received from my mother and my grandmother and my father and his side of the family as well. And through these experiences of motherhood and birth, and start sharing with other women. So I hold circles for women and experiences where I invite them to connect to their golden core, to their essence, to their heart, to return to this place and to receive nourishment as well from that place, to I invite them to surrender and to allow themselves to receive. I find that with the groups of women I'm tending to work with, they are often overstretched and they overextend themselves. So they are holders themselves, they are mothers, they are women who are caring for others in many different ways. They may be therapists, they may be carers. So yeah, I love to create those spaces where they can connect to their essence, to their heart, to their gifts, and receive. So this is, yeah, a bit of my journey as well. Thank you.
Well done, darling. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. Incredible. So beautiful. Thank you for your time, and I'm sure we will connect again.
Before we go, actually, I'm not also, you think I'll be better at this by now. My birth work ends up with Lotus Birth.
Oh, beautiful.
And Lotus Birth was first published in 2000. This is the second edition. So it's really understanding the importance of the birth process and particularly of the placenta and the role of the placenta and the beautiful time between the birth and when the baby lets go, the cord comes away at the navel. So that's well worth knowing about.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
I'll make sure I'll send you a copy. I'll send a copy.
Oh.
I think you'd enjoy it.
Oh, thank you so much. Such treasure. Thank you. Thank you for your time. So lovely meeting you. Oh,
I'm glad we sorted out the
I know. I'm glad we worked something
glitches
out.
at the beginning. This worked well.
It has. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you, Marina.
I
Love to
hope
you.
all goes well on Sunday as well.
Thank you. Love to you.